They said the playground behind the old estate in Sham Shui Po is not for children after dark. The swings creak in windless air, the seesaw lifts as if a small weight presses down, and glass marbles roll uphill until they tap together like teeth. If you pass by after midnight, never follow the trail of chalk hopscotch numbers across the rubber floor. And if a little voice under the slide whispers, "Can you play with me?" do not answer. Neighbors remember the accident like a scar that never heals. Sirens, a toppled fence, a red school bag left open with a workbook inside. Since then, the estate's lifts stall on the playground level for no reason. Cameras capture nothing except a smear of motion that looks like a child running past the frame, always just out of sight. Last winter, a security guard locked the park gates at 2 a.m. and heard a rubber ball bounce 3 times behind him. He found the ball in the sand, still trembling, and tiny handprints forming on the slide where no one stood. Believe the story or don't. But if you ever hear a marble stop at your shoe and the night asks you to play, keep walking. Some games, once started, never end. Her name was May, a 26-year-old kindergarten teacher who had just moved into Sham Shui Po. By day, her life was as ordinary as anyone's. Early mornings rushing to class, afternoons filled with chalk dust and children's songs, evenings grading papers by the faint glow of her desk lamp. She lived alone in a modest flat on the 7th floor of a weathered housing block, the kind with peeling paint and pipes that groaned in the night. The building sat beside a fenced playground, once bustling with children but now left in disrepair. The swings hung limp, rust staining their chains. The merry-go-round was chained to the ground to prevent accidents. Only the slide still stood tall, its plastic faded under the Sunday. May walked past the playground every evening on her way home, and though she told herself it was just a relic of the past, she often felt washed, as if the shadows of dusk lingered longer there than anywhere else. Locals warned her in passing, voices hushed as if embarrassed by their own superstition. Don't look at the playground after midnight. Don't pick up toys left near the gates. If you hear a child call, keep walking. May smiled politely, assuming it was just another urban legend told to scare newcomers. Her routine continued. Dinner from the night market, television murmuring in the background, the hum of neon signs outside her window. It was a quiet life, predictable and safe. Until one evening, as she passed the playground at twilight, she noticed a red rubber ball sitting perfectly still in the sand, and though no wind stirred, it rolled slowly toward her feet. At first, May convinced herself the ball was nothing. Maybe a neighborhood child had left it behind. Maybe the slight tilt of the ground made it roll. She nudged it back into the sand with her shoe and hurried upstairs. But that night, long after she had washed her dishes and curled into bed, she woke to the faint sound of something bouncing. Thump, thump, thump. The cadence was unmistakable rubber striking concrete. She froze, listening. Her flat overlooked the playground. She tiptoed to the window, pulling back the curtain. The court was empty under the yellow glow of the street lamp. The swings hung still, shadows stretched long and lifeless. Yet there it was, the red ball bouncing by itself in the sandpit, rising and falling as though struck by an invisible hand. The sound stopped the moment her eyes fixed on it. The ball lay motionless, half buried in grit. May closed the curtain quickly, telling herself she was overtired, that reflections or tricks of light could deceive her. She lay awake for hours, ears straining, but heard nothing more. The next evening, she avoided looking toward the playground altogether. She walked fast, clutching her tote bag, keys tight in her hand. But as she reached the gate to her building, a small sound drifted toward her. The clear, delicate click of marbles rolling. She glanced down instinctively. At her feet rested 2 glass marbles, faintly luminous under the streetlight. She hadn't seen them fall. Swallowing hard, she bent to pick them up. They were icy cold, far too cold for the humid air. She dropped them immediately, heart pounding. When they hit the pavement, instead of scattering, they rolled together and stopped perfectly still, side by side, like two watchful eyes staring up at her. Over the next few nights, the disturbances grew bolder. Children's chalk drawings appeared on the pavement by the playground gates, smiling stick figures, hopscotch squares, numbers scrawled unevenly. Rain would wash them away, but the drawings returned by nightfall, brighter and stranger. Figures with wide, hollow eyes were shapes that looked less like children and more like shadows with arms outstretched. Inside her apartment, May began noticing faint traces, tiny handprints smeared low on her balcony door, though no child could have reached the 7th floor. A faint giggle echoing through the hallway when she returned late from work, the sound bouncing from stairwell to stairwell. Once, while brushing her teeth, she heard a voice behind her soft, almost a whisper, "Play with me." She spun, toothpaste dripping from her mouth. The flat was empty. She tried to rationalize neighbors' children, city noises, overwork, but reason faltered when, one night, she found her own chalk, the set she used in class, spilled across her living room floor. And written in shaky, childish scrawl on her wall were the words, "Don't leave me here." May stopped sleeping with the lights off. Every creak of the building, every flicker of the hallway lamp pulled her upright in bed, ears straining. She told herself it was exhaustion, that her imagination was feeding her fear. But the playground refused to let her forget. One night, as she hurried home with grocery bags cutting into her hands, she heard the sharp squeal of metal. The swings, which had hung lifeless for months, were moving back and forth in uneven rhythm, as if two invisible children were pushing each other higher. She froze at the edge of the courtyard, bags slipping from her fingers, apples tumbling across the pavement. Then came the laughter, high-pitched, echoing, layered as though several children giggled at once. She bolted upstairs, heart hammering so hard she nearly dropped her keys. By morning, she tried to laugh it off, but the laughter lingered in her ears. At work, she found herself staring at her students differently, watching their games with unease. When one of them sang a skipping rhyme, May felt her throat tighten. It was the same tune she had heard whispered beneath her apartment the night before. The apartment itself grew colder. Some nights she would wake to find her blanket pulled halfway across the room, as if small hands had tugged it while she slept. The marbles appeared again and again in her shoes, in her kitchen sink, once even under her pillow. Always two, always ice cold. She began asking discreetly around the neighborhood. The older residents were reluctant, but one woman finally spoke. Years ago, she said, a little girl had died in that playground. A fence had broken, a fall from the slide, and no one reached her in time. The story was never in the papers, but everyone remembered the sirens, the crying mother, the red school bag left open in the sand. Since then, children avoided the playground, and parents warned each other never to pass by after dark. The more May learned, the worse the nights became. Shadows flicker at the edge of her vision, darting just out of sight. Her television turned on by itself, the static screen glowing faintly in the dark. Once, she swore she saw the reflection of a small figure standing behind her in the bathroom mirror, its head tilted, eyes black as void. When she turned, the room was empty. The final blow came late one evening. May was marking homework at her desk when the sound of chalk scratching reached her ears. She froze. The chalk set was still in her drawer. Slowly, she turned toward the wall. Letters were forming, jagged and clumsy, as though a child's hand pressed invisible chalk against the plaster. "Come play!" Her breath caught in her throat. Then, beneath it, more words scrawled themselves with frantic speed. "Don't leave me. Don't leave me. Don't leave me." The chalk dropped from the air, rolling across the floor, though no one had been holding it. May pressed her back against the wall, tears pricking her eyes. She realized then that this was no simple haunting. The child's spirit was not just reaching out, it was clinging, desperate, refusing to be forgotten. And it had chosen her as its playmate. May knew she couldn't ignore it any longer. The messages on her wall, the marbles, the voice that whispered at night, it wasn't stopping. If anything, it was growing more insistent. On her next day off, she decided to seek out the truth behind the playground. She began with the district library, combing through old records and neighborhood reports. At first, there was nothing, no official accident, no mention of a child's death. But tucked inside a folder of Estate Committee meeting notes from 15 years ago, she found a single entry. Incident: child fatally injured on playground equipment. Estate to close park until repairs are made. The notes ended there, cold and bureaucratic. But May pressed further. After asking around with the older residents, a retired security guard finally told her what had really happened. The girl's name was Ling. She had been 7 years old, playing alone late in the evening when a section of the metal fence collapsed. Witnesses said she had tried to climb down to retrieve her ball, but the slide gave way. By the time help arrived, Ling was gone. The details chilled May more than she expected. The red school bag, the ball, the laughter, they all matched what she had seen. But the guard added one final piece. The girl's body had been removed, but her mother had refused to take her belongings. She left them there, he said quietly. The bag, the marbles, even the chalk, said they belonged to the playground now, as if the child would still need them. That night, May returned home with the weight of this truth pressing down on her. She looked at the playground differently. It wasn't just a relic of the past, it was a memorial, abandoned but never at rest. Her apartment reflected the shift. On her desk, she found her own chalk neatly stacked, arranged in the same order as the chalk lines she had seen scrawled on the pavement outside. On the floor, 2 marbles sat side by side, waiting. And then came the clearest sign of all. As she stood at her window, staring down at the empty playground, the reflection in the glass shifted. For a heartbeat, it wasn't her face looking back, but that of a little girl with hair tied in 2 short braids, eyes dark and pleading. Her lips moved soundlessly, but May knew what she was saying. Don't leave me here. In that moment, May understood the haunting. The child wasn't just restless, she was trapped, bound to the playground where she had died. And now she had found someone willing to see her, someone who couldn't look away. The question was no longer if May believed. It was whether she could escape before the spirit decided to keep her forever. The night it happened, the city felt unusually still. May had stayed late at school, hoping the fatigue would silence the whispers. But when she stepped off the minibus and saw the playground under the jaundiced glow of the street lamp, she knew she would not escape. The red ball was waiting in the sandpit again. It rolled twice, stopped at the edge, and then without wind, without touch, bounced straight toward her feet. Her chest tightened. She should have turned away. She should have run upstairs. Instead, some mix of fear and pity drew her toward the gates. The padlock that usually sealed them hung loose, as though someone had unlatched it just for her. The hinges groaned as she pushed it open. Inside, the air was colder, thick with a scent of rust and wet earth. May's footsteps crunched across the gravel. She heard it immediately, the faint tap-tap of marbles rolling, circling her in the dark. Then came a child's giggle, soft at first, then multiplying until it seemed to echo from every corner of the playground. "Ling?" her voice cracked. "Are you here?" Silence. Then, beneath the slide, 2 tiny hands pressed against the plastic surface, leaving smears of chalk dust. Slowly, a figure crawled into view. It was a little girl, her school uniform tattered, her hair in braids. She held a marble in one hand and clutched the red satchel against her chest. Her eyes gleamed unnaturally dark, too deep, as though they reached into something endless. "Play with me," the child said, her voice sing-song, like a nursery rhyme out of tune. May's knees shook. She whispered, "I can't." The girl tilted her head, smile widening too far. "Don't leave me here." The swings behind May creaked to life, chains rattling violently, though the air was still. The merry-go-round spun in jerks, faster and faster, the sound of laughter growing shrill. The red ball bounced high into the air, landing just inches from her shoes. May stumbled back, but the girl was suddenly closer, her face only a breath away. Her cold little hand gripped May's wrist with surprising strength. Instantly, May's vision blurred. She was no longer standing in the playground, she was inside a memory that wasn't hers. She saw Ling falling, the fence collapsing, the world spinning as metal scraped skin. She felt the pain, the breathless terror, the desperate cry for help that never came. The sensation was overwhelming, suffocating. May gasped, trying to tear herself free, but the child's grip tightened. "You saw me," Ling whispered, her lips brushing May's ear. "Now stay," May fought, yanking her arm, her voice hoarse. "I'm sorry. I can't. I'm not your mother." The words cut through the air. The laughter stopped. The swings froze mid-arc. The merry-go-round screeched to a halt. The little girl's face twisted, her dark eyes glistening with sudden fury. "Then you'll never leave." The ground beneath May shifted, soft as sand pulling her down. Dozens of tiny hands, chalk-stained, cold as stone, reached up from the earth, grasping her ankles, tugging her deeper. She screamed, clawing at the gravel, but the more she struggled, the more the hands multiplied. In the final act of desperation, May yanked the satchel from Ling's arms. The child shrieked, a sound like breaking glass, and lunged for it. May hurled the satchel toward the gate. It burst open mid-air, spilling faded notebooks, broken crayons, and marbles that scattered across the ground. The spirit froze, gaze locked on the belongings. For the first time, her face softened, no longer a predator, but a child staring at the pieces of her life abandoned. She reached for them, trembling. The hands released May, and she scrambled backward, lungs burning. The playground spun with shadows, the air vibrating with whispers too many to comprehend. Ling knelt in the sand, clutching the satchel to her chest, her form flickering like static. She looked up at May one last time, her voice small, fragile. "Don't forget me." Then she was gone. The swing stilled, the laughter evaporated. Only the marbles remained, scattered across the sand, gleaming faintly under the streetlight. May staggered out of the playground, collapsing against the gate as the lock snapped shut behind her. The silence was deafening, yet she knew it was not over. The playground had released her for now, but the child's plea still echoed in her ears. "Don't forget me." The following days blurred together. May went to work, taught her classes, smiled when she needed to, but her hands never stopped trembling. At night, she kept her curtains drawn tight, refusing to glance toward the playground below. For a while, the disturbances stopped. No more bouncing balls, no marbles in her sink, no giggles echoing in the stairwell. The silence felt like a reprieve, but also like the pause between breaths. She could not shake the memory of the girl's eyes, too dark and endless, staring into her soul. One evening, a storm swept across the city. Rain lashed against windows, thunder rolling low. May prepared tea to calm her nerves. As she reached for her cup, something rattled across her table. She froze. 2 marbles rolled slowly from the edge of the desk, circling each other before coming to rest side by side. Her chest tightened. She had thrown them away, she was sure of it. Yet here they were, cold and perfect. The tea in her cup rippled as though stirred by an unseen hand. She whispered into the empty room, her voice breaking. "Ling?" No reply came, only the soft patter of rain. But when she checked her balcony door later that night, she found a small chalk drawing smudged across the glass. It was a stick figure, smiling, holding the hand of another. May stood in the quiet, tears welling. The haunting was not gone. The child was not finished. Down below, the playground lay drowned in storm water. But for an instant, she thought she saw the red ball floating in the floodlight, rocking gently back and forth as if waiting, and she realized the truth. She had not escaped. She had been chosen to remember. Ghost stories linger because they carry more than fright. They carry the fragments of lives interrupted. In Sham Shui Po, the playground is not just haunted because of a child's death, it is haunted because she was forgotten. Her toys left behind, her voice dismissed as superstition, her presence reduced to whispers parents used to warn their children. May's encounter reveals something deeper than fear. Spirits like Lin do not always seek to harm. Sometimes they only want to be seen, to be remembered. The marbles, the chalk drawings, the satchel, all of them were echoes of a life that ended too soon, stitched into the fabric of the place where she fell. But memory can be both a gift and a curse. Once May acknowledged Lin, she became part of that loop of remembrance. The child's plea, "Don't forget me," was both a request and a binding. To forget would be to abandon her again, but to remember is to live with her forever. Perhaps that is the real warning behind the story. Places like the playground are not merely abandoned. They are waiting patiently for someone willing to look too closely. And once you see, once you answer, you cannot simply walk away. In Hong Kong, neon lights may drown the night, but shadows endure between them. Sometimes they take the shape of children, and sometimes all they want is for you to play just one game, one memory, one promise, never to forget.